Hey, welcome back to the 7-Figure Music School podcast. I'm Daniel. This is Nate. And this episode, we have a returning guest of the show. His third time returning, Brian King from Rock U Music School in Minnesota. Now, a couple weeks back, we interviewed Brian on a new format we're testing called 5 for 5, where we're just going to bring in some really cool school owners and ask them 5 specific questions about their school to see how they would answer them. And Brian said something really interesting in that interview. He started going into the idea of a simple way that he'd built his school. And, just not to be overly dramatic here, how he used networking to build Rock U from 30 students on June 1st of 2021. They opened a school with about 30 students to, at the time of this recording, 260 students. And interestingly, when this episode airs, it's the day before their 2-year anniversary of being open. So, Brian, I don't even know how many students you're going to have at that point in time. But suffice to say, we wanted to bring Brian back on to ask some questions about that unusual method of growing a school. One that's not numbers-based, not ad-based, but that's more relationally based and community-based. And I think this is going to be a really interesting episode because this fits in with a number of episodes we've done here in 2023 where we've examined things like how to do open houses, how to do event-based marketing. Mm-hmm. And actually, when we were even doing the event-based marketing episode, I actually even mentioned Brian, thinking like, man, I'd really love to get Brian's take on this. So I think this is another way to really dig in deep on something that isn't talked a lot about in the community of music school owners that are out there. And I think, we're networking right now, Brian. So welcome back. I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic.
Yeah, thanks. Super excited. And Daniel, it's so funny. This is probably the reason why I'm so excited to talk about it, because you said something really interesting in your intro. And you said that the way we have grown our business is unusual, which I think is a fascinating way to think about it, because to me, the power of networking, the power of partnerships and referrals is such a tried and true and old school classic method.
Yeah.
And businesses have relied on digital for the last, call it 5 to 10 years, that it's become a crutch. Like leaning on digital and saying, well, we're not doing good in our digital game, so our business isn't doing well. It's like, well, have you tried just the old school way of shaking someone's hand, talking to them face to face? It's so fascinating to me that is now like an outdated way to grow a business. Because to me, it's just like a quintessential way to start. And I think it's fascinating because if we talk to any other business owner, they would agree with you that doing it this way is unusual.
Well, I think then this is a natural way to open the episode because, Brian, tell us a little bit about your background that even made you think of this as a go-to method when it isn't something necessarily that a lot of school owners think about or rely upon. Like, what about your background led you to this way of doing things?
So a few things. So my background is that prior to opening up Rock U, I spent well over a decade leading marketing and digital marketing teams in the corporate world. As I was building Rock U in the pandemic, I was, leading a digital marketing team for a Fortune 500 company. And so that's where my background is in digital and that whole space and leaning on building a business through the digital side of things. Mm-hmm. And so when I was building up Rock U prior to opening, I had created and developed some incredibly complex marketing plans and customer journey maps, dynamic-based email content based on how visitors had interacted with our website, and multi-tiered nurture campaigns, all this kind of stuff, all the kind of things that were very normal in my line of work back in the corporate world when I had a team and I had a budget and you're playing with house money. It didn't matter because you're spending the company's money. And if a campaign failed, oh, well, it's not coming out of my paycheck. What do I care? What was really interesting is trying to figure out, okay, the first several months of owning a business, starting up a business is this thing going to work? Is the demand there? Well, okay, we enrolled some students, found out people were enjoying it. Yes, it works. So how do we now grow? And one of the things that was ingrained in me in my corporate world was the power of networking. the power of just going out, meeting with people, talking with people. And the other interesting thing too is that my wife is actually a corporate recruiter here in the Twin Cities, where there's a lot of big companies headquartered, things like that. And so her career is built on the power of networking. And she is the not even gold standard, like the diamond standard when it comes to networking. Her LinkedIn profile, she actually got an award. She's got one of the most top 1% most viewed LinkedIn profiles in the world.
Wow.
Because her business is built on networking. And so I've learned so much from her as well about why it works and how it works, and the power of referrals, the power of just shaking someone's hand, talking them eye to eye. So I was like, let's give that a shot. And so that's what I spent most of 2022 doing, is laying out that ground game, getting involved in our area, our Chamber of Commerce here in Woodbury, going out and meeting with other business owners and talking about, hey, what kind of partnership opportunities we have here? Could I leave a flyer here if you give me a flyer? Hey, you've got an email list. Do you mind if we include a special on one of your upcoming newsletters? We'll throw one in one of ours. And doing things like putting our booth up at events, community fairs, business expos, things like that. Just becoming a visible part of the community was so important. And I truly believe that is how and why we've grown, because like we talked about, that's not how most businesses are doing it right now, because they're leaning on what really kind of is the easy way to grow yourself through digital, because it doesn't take that extra effort. It doesn't take the physical effort to go out and talk to someone and set up a coffee, things like that. It's so interesting because it feels like it's become now an ancient practice because of the world we're in right now, post-pandemic. People are now starting to meet again and be able to do that and meet in the real world, not the virtual world. And again, all this is so crazy coming from my mouth, because that's what I built my career on prior to being here, is creating these campaigns and building a business in the digital world.
So can you give me like 2 or 3 examples of where you've put effort into this physical, putting yourself out there, networking? 1 or 2 examples where you're like, Nate, this felt great, and I keep showing up to do this as the owner. And then 1 or 2 examples where you're like, we tried this version of networking, and honestly, I don't see that as a sustainable option.
Yeah, so let's start with one that works.
Yeah.
Because it has been honestly one of the most powerful things that I've done. So in our community, and I'm guessing in your guys' communities too, there are a ton of, in the summertime especially, business expos, county fairs, city fairs, where they bring in, carnival games, stuff like that. And you have the opportunity to set up a little booth there. That has been one of our most effective ways of getting out in the community, and for me, of networking with people. Because 2 reasons. 1, you've got a physical booth set up, and so people come and they interact with you, and you just chat with them, have conversations. And one of the most important marketing tools that we can have as a business owner is a business card.
Right.
Because I can't tell you how many amazing conversations I've had because of my business card that I've handed out at these kind of events. We use them as like lead gen tools, things like that. We've got ways for kids to sign up, and they get deals and stuff like that when they sign up at the events. But it has been an avenue for so many other things, so many different opportunities. I'm top of my mind, I'm thinking, we had it's called Woodbury Days. I set up a booth there last summer and talking with people and handing out business cards, things like that. And about 3 months after that, I got a call from someone saying, hey, I met you at Woodbury Days and we had a great conversation. I'm like, cool, I had like 1,000 conversations. I don't remember you specifically, but let's chat. And it ended up, she's a school teacher that was looking to leave her job, and we had a great conversation. And she's like, hey, are you, looking to bring somebody on? Are you looking to hire? And I'm like, I'm always looking to hire. Let's chat some more. Yeah. And and she's one of our most amazing teachers. And I only got to know her because of networking that I did at this event. And she gave me a call 3 months after the fact. Another example, we've got another community expo that we do that I think happens we've got one, it's actually coming up here soon in a couple of weeks. But same thing, you get a booth, you go around, you talk to other business owners at the other booths, hand out your card, have those conversations. Same thing happened where about 2 weeks after that, somebody gives me a call, say, hey, you and I had a quick 30-second conversation at this community expo. Let's grab a quick coffee. Cool. Did that. We had coffee. Turns out this guy who's a real estate agent, is a musician and just wanted to chat more about what it's like to own a music school. And oh, by the way, his son is in one of the biggest up and coming rock bands in the Twin Cities.
Right.
And so we had a great conversation, and now his kid might be coming out and doing a master class on, how to be in a successful band. And it's just those random connections would never happen if I hadn't gone out in the community, shook some hands, had some little conversations. And it's just those kind of things don't happen unless you just put yourself out there. Nate, you would also ask what doesn't work.
Well, yeah, I'm curious, and I might frame this in the context of an entrepreneur mindset, which is you're a busy guy. There's 1,000 things you're doing currently at Rock U, and you're one of the challenges we face is learning to say no. So I'm curious what you've said no to around networking, because you're like, when I show up, I actually resent it.
It's interesting. There's one of the things that I've actually said no to is similar kind of like business fairs, but around the music education space. Music Educators of Minnesota, I think is the name of the organization.
Totally.
They have a big conference and, blah, 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 all this stuff. And, I've been asked to come out there and stuff like that. And I'm like, but for my business, I don't see where the opportunity is, aside from maybe, again, meeting some great teachers, things like that. But again, I'm at capacity for teachers. And so, yes, it'd be a great chance to build a pipeline and things like that. But right now, my primary focus is growing students at the school. And
right.
So there are, that's something that happens, in a different community than where we are. And so my chances for making a meaningful networking connection, yes, of course it's still there, but it's not as high as something that is more here and hyper localized. Because you're right, Nate. I got 4 kids, so yeah. When I'm not here at Rock U, I'm on a soccer field or doing carpools, all that kind of stuff. So you have to be selective about what you say yes to. But every opportunity is a good opportunity, in my opinion. There's no such thing as a bad network opportunity. It's just a matter of figuring out what's going to work for you and also kind of thinking about what do I want to get out of this opportunity.
Daniel, questions from your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so I have some specific questions, Brian, because I work with a lot of people who are getting their marketing system started, or they're doing some version of marketing now, but they don't think it's very effective, or just in general, they're not getting enough new students signed up. And so they come to me, they go through my marketing training, or they work with me personally. And inevitably, when I teach them things that they should be doing, there's a little bit of that beginner's syndrome, let's just call it that, where, oh man, this is all new and strange and that sort of thing. And I imagine someone could hear this, what you've been saying, and they could feel like, oh, this is another thing I'm going to have to learn how to do. And so I have just a couple questions I want to ask you, kind of rapid fire, just to see how you'd answer them, to help someone begin to imagine themselves as someone who could do this, So first thing, this one's really easy. How did you find these expos? How did you even find these opportunities?
So for one, we've lived in our community for a while. So these were things that I had been attending before, just with my kids. So I knew that they existed.
Okay.
But then the other thing is, again, being as a part of the Chamber of Commerce here, you then get invited to these events. You get, you get the opportunity to have a booth at these things. And so through that, you have priority access to sign up, and you get discounts at putting your booth at these things. But then it's also talking with other business owners. Hey, what have you done in the past that's worked? What are some other things that big festivals, little festivals, things like that you've been involved in that maybe would be worth us checking out? It's really just knowing your community and realizing that, hey, that thing that I went to with my kids 5 years ago, that could be something that I could be involved in.
Yeah.
So the things are out there, and you probably already know about them.
So right there already, there's a few subtle tips or hacks. I hate that word, but I can't think of a better one right now. But like, join your chamber of commerce. Actually speak to other business owners. Yep. You'll actually begin to get ideas just through that research. And of course, I know we're kind of turning our back on digital in this episode, but you could use Google to find out these local community events that you can participate in. Maybe to even find some that you're unaware of potentially. Okay, so those are really good answers to that first question. Here's my second question. There'll probably be more, but right now this is the second of two questions. What 3 steps or tips would you give another school owner to have success at one of these community expos? Now, you've already given some good ideas, like have the business card, but I want to even go like a step. I want to go a level deeper even than that. So you've got the booth, you've got the business card, you've showed up with a mindset to actually, not wait for people to come to you, but to actually maybe start going to them. With that as a baseline, what would you tell someone so that they could have success at these kind of community events or fairs?
The most important thing is know what is your purpose for being there. So for us, like I said, our primary purpose for being involved in specific events is lead generation. And so what we do is we have a very specific purpose in mind. I treat each one of these kind of events as almost mini marketing campaigns. Actually, they are marketing campaigns. I set them up that way, and I measure them that way. So every event has we've got our booth laid out, we've got a table laid out, and the way that I collect lead information is through a QR code on our table. And hey, submit your information here through this QR code, and you'll get a discount if you sign up. Guess what? Not everybody signs up, but then that's another way to grow your email list. Mm-hmm. And so as long as you have a primary purpose for being there, you will know kind of, hey, all right, what do I want to get out of this? Therefore, what's the mentality I've got to have when I'm there talking to people, even creating your marketing materials or creating a booth for the first time. If you're there to create leads, then you want to make sure that you've got a nice little sign that talks about how great your school is and set up all of the marketing that way for that purpose. But then also have a meaningful way of collecting information from people. So for us, like I said, the easiest way to do it is through a QR code, because then you're not having to hand out paper forms and leave pens at an event where a wind gust might blow everything away. Everyone's got a phone in their pocket. They can easily snap a QR code. And then also you've got more email addresses to add to your newsletter. And it's an easy way to set up a campaign in whatever kind of marketing automation tool you're using, whether it be MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or Marketo. You can then segment every single one of these events after the fact, go back and say, hey, cool. Of the 5 events that I did this year, which ones had the best percentage of whatever I was trying to get out of it? Whether it's close leads, add more leads to my newsletter list, hire teachers. Like, you can have a very specific reason for being a part of any of these events. Also knowing you never know what you're going to get out of it. Like I said with the other examples, where I hired a new teacher from an event where my primary purpose was there for lead generation. And so it's also kind of going with an open mind. You never know what you're going to get, but it's better to be there than to not be there.
Okay, then a few really specific questions so people can, again, begin to visualize what they could get out of this. About how many emails would you collect in any one of these events? Or if you want to give me a range, like, hey, our worst event over the last 2 years was this, our best event was this. Like, maybe even the range would be helpful.
Yeah, and it totally depends on the event, the size, the location, the length. So, for us, our biggest event is what I had mentioned before, Woodbury Days. It's actually a 3-day community festival where they bring out carnival games and rides, things like that. And we've got a booth set up there for 3 straight days. And I think last year we collected 200 email addresses, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd have to go back and look because a lot has happened between now and then. I can't tell you. I know we got students from it. I know it's successful. And again, just based on the conversations I had after the fact, there's plenty of leads that we got, or plenty of students who enrolled who we didn't even collect their information at the event. They just called me up 3 or 4 months later and said, hey, I saw you at the whatever event. and we'd like to enroll now. Cool. I don't even have your information because you didn't fill out a form then, but you knew about me from when I was at this thing 3 or 4 months ago.
And maybe as just like a last question here, what do you spend the majority of your time doing during those days? Like if someone was taking snapshots of you like a security camera every 30 seconds for the whole day, what would they see you mostly doing that entire day?
Mostly, so we've got those little rubber wristbands that say Rock You. They've got our logo on it and then our website on it. So that is my way of like advertising on the children. So I'm coming out and I'm not behind my booth. I'm in front of my booth, handing out these little rubber bracelets with Rock You and our logo and our website on them to every kid that passes by, giving high fives and just talking to people. That's all it is. Like you see, that's the other interesting thing you see at these events, Daniel, is that the majority, not even the majority, 99.5% of the people, you've got these little booths set up. Most of the people are behind their table and waiting for someone to approach them. I do the opposite. I just go out in front and just strike up a conversation, hand out my little rubber bands, and just get our name out there.
How do you open? How do you engage someone walking by without you feeling intrusive, or maybe you do feel intrusive?
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I mean, the thing is that if someone doesn't want to chat with you, they're not going to stop and chat with you.
Sure.
It's just like any other social interaction. Really, it's me just handing them my bracelet and then someone kind of looking behind me like, oh, cool, you go to music school. Yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, we're Rock You. We do music lessons. Hey, Jimmy, do you like playing? Interested? Things like that. It's just having a couple of preloaded icebreaker questions and just use them.
Okay.
And just see what happens. And it's just basic social interactions, and you never know where they're going to go. A lot of time you're not even talking about music school. You're talking about something else, but it doesn't matter. You're still interacting with a person.
Nate, I want to kick it over to you. But first, Brian, do you have like a picture of this booth? If you do, I think I'm going to have our video editor put it on the YouTube video, and then our blog post guy, if you're listening on the podcast, maybe you can come to the blog post and see it on the actual blog post. Like, do you have a picture of the booth?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'll send you one over. And
Perfect.
The other thing that people have to realize is that when I say booth, I mean, you can make this as low budget as you want. Our booth is, I've got a folding table with a nice tablecloth that's branded, and then, just one of those pull-out signs that's 7 feet tall that's got Rock You logo and information on it. And you can buy all this stuff. I think I spent a total of maybe $300 total on the booth that I use for all of our events. And then just making sure that you've got some sort of a swag giveaway at every event, because that's a lot of people are there just for the swag. And so you've got to have something to entice people to come to your booth to chat with you. And for us, what's worked really well is temporary tattoos and little rubber bracelets. Kids love those things. They're hits.
Yeah. It's funny. We do guitar picks, and they love the temporary tattoos and stickers. A lot of stickers.
A lot of stickers, man.
A lot of Brooklyn Music Factory stickers. I got a couple of real specific questions for you, Brian, but I want to just go back and highlight one thing you said, because it can be. I'm going to be honest. Our listeners can get totally intimidated hearing you talk about how you can easily build a segmented campaign where you're measuring all events and then going back to see the most valuable. So I encourage people to consider that.
Nate, to tag onto that too, for anybody who's listening it's terrifying to think about running a marketing campaign or doing any of that. All marketing automation tools, like I said, whether it's an Active Campaign, a MailChimp, a Marketo, under the hood, they're all the same. They all do the same thing. It's just a matter of going out, figuring out which one you like, and then also recognizing they are all now built with kind of small business owners in mind, where everything you do is drag and drop. Everything you do is a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get editor, where you're literally just saying, I want my email to look like this. Okay, I drag this button here that has a picture on it. There's a picture in my email there. I drag this, and everything is now set up that way, where you don't have to be a professional marketer to use these tools. They've got great, teaching videos on all their websites. Spend a couple hours on it, and you're up and running. They're not they're not as complex or hard as people think they are. It's just intimidating to start the process. But once you get into it, they're intuitive, they're pretty simple to use, and everyone should be using one.
Yeah, totes. Because basically, if you have any resistance to it, what you're actually doing is saying, I'm going to trade the research in for more hours of my time. You can spend some research now and build a version that you can use over and over at every one of these county fairs, or you can continue to manually manage a pile of paper contacts that you've gotten. Brian, I want to go back to the Chamber of Commerce because you mentioned that, and we have never joined the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. And I literally, when you met, I wrote down, Nate, join the friggin' Chamber of Commerce. And I want to know from you, Brian, where you've gotten either some random connections that have become really valuable to you, or how does that local Chamber of Commerce, when do you lean on them and for what? And where's the value that you've seen in your couple of years of being a member of them?
Yeah, a few things. Number one is, and again, digital marketing nerd, but usually almost always, when you join up for a Chamber of Commerce, then you get a little page on that Chamber of Commerce site. Guess what? That works really great for SEO because then now you've got some backlinks, things like that. Helps out your website, helps out your organic traffic, things like that. Number two, it is a very powerful networking tool because then you've got access to all the other small business owners in your area who are also part of the Chamber of Commerce. And the cool thing that you learn once you start talking to these people is that everyone's kind of in it together. Everyone wants to see other people in the community succeed. And so when you reach out, a cold call, a cold email, even walking into a coffee shop, and you've got a stack of your brochures, and you just say, hey, I'm the owner at Rock U. I got your info from the Chamber of Commerce. Hey, could I leave these here? And do you have anything you could give me, and we could do some co-marketing? I've never had someone say no. And it's just kind of that power of community and the realization that everybody else is in it together, and we just want to see each other succeed. And I'm not even like a quote unquote active member. I don't go to all the meetings and all the luncheons and all that stuff. But it was interesting. I actually was chatting with another business owner a couple of weeks ago, and he said, yeah, one thing that I make sure I do is all the ribbon cuttings that happen. So whenever a new business opens up, I make sure I'm there because at every ribbon cutting, they do a photo out in front. And if you're in the Chamber of Commerce, you can be in the photo. And guess what? If I wear my business T-shirt there, I got free advertising. And I'm like, that is brilliant. Yeah. Why not? Because you're not only networking with people, free advertising. You're getting yourself in the local paper or the a website or the local news magazine, things like that. And again, you never know what kind of interaction you're going to get when you just put yourself out there and meet with these people. So it's easy to do. It's usually inexpensive, but it just gets you access to things that you might not have access to.
Brian, I think I love what you're saying here, and I want to go a level deeper again just to get very, very practical because, again, I think people can hear this or watch this if they're on YouTube. By the way, drop a like if you would, please. And they can hear that and be like, okay, join Chamber of Commerce, go to ribbon cutting ceremonies. That's what Brian said. Beyond that, I'm not sure what to do. So could you give us some specific stories about how being in the Chamber of Commerce turned into something that was a net positive for your school? And they don't have to be super long stories, but maybe just a series of vignettes where you're like, oh yeah, met this guy, led to this, did this thing, led to that. So you gave us a real inside look on that camp fair earlier, those expos earlier, maybe ways that you're doing networking outside of those specific events, but just kind of in this general way that you've been describing for the last 5-10 minutes. Can you give us some specific examples?
So a specific example is actually one that kind of goes the other way, where someone reached out to me and I didn't even know they existed. So, as a result of being in the chamber, you get your name out there, things like that. There's a dance studio here in Woodbury that I hadn't even thought of doing anything with them. But because we're in the chamber, we're in it together, they saw us on maybe a newsletter or something like that. And so they thought to reach out to me and say, hey, you guys want to you guys want to find some way to work together? And absolutely. We've got, we have the same kind of clientele. We've got the same kind, our communities are very similar. That is an absolute no-brainer. But that interaction, that reach out on their behalf, I don't think would have happened had it not been for us being in the chamber, because of the fact that our business name is on these newsletters and we're included in a lot of those kind of things. They've, in their brain, that thought that meant for them, hey, I should reach out to Rock U. And so now we've got a partnership with them, and we're going to start doing things together. And it's one of those things that we didn't have to do any action on our part, but I don't think that networking partnership would have happened had it not been for us being in the chamber, because we wouldn't have been on those newsletter lists. Our name wouldn't have been involved in a couple of these random things here and there.
Interesting. Is there any place where you've done like a partnership where it isn't like another performing arts academy? Like you mentioned the dance academy there. Is there an example of like this random barber shop, or, this lawn care service? Like, I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't one, but I'm curious if you have any examples of that.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Two top of mind. You said barbershop. So we've got a kid's haircut, specific, like a barbershop that is for kids here in Woodbury. I bring them brochures every once in a while. My kids go, and the reason I thought to go there is because that's where my kids go get their haircut. And actually, my wife said, "Hey, why don't you just like partner with them?" And I'm like, "Oh, great idea, cool." And had a conversation with the owner, and she's like, "Sure, why not?" And now we do some cool partnership or some co-marketing together. Another example is daycares. I networked with a daycare around here. We were launching our Tot Rock program for kids age 3 to 5. I thought, what a great opportunity to partner with a daycare around here. And chatted with the owner. Owner said, yeah, sure, why not? He got us, made a mention of us in a couple of their monthly newsletters. We got some students signed up. And it's just those conversations and just not being afraid to ask. Again, because what you learn, other local businesses are more than happy to help, because they want to see you succeed. And also it's you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back mentality, because then we do some marketing on their behalf as well to our clients,
Could you give me a specific example of even with that daycare, what did that partnership look like? Maybe just give us a little bit more detail, and I'm going to move on from this. I know I'm getting super practical here, but I think it's helpful to the listeners.
Having the conversation with them, it was actually my kids went to daycare there. And so I already had that relationship. So it was a very easy ask, but started off, I took him out to coffee because he's a small business owner, has been in the community for a long time. I wanted to pick his brain. And so had a coffee, started talking about business, and just started bouncing ideas off of each other. And I said, hey, we've got this new Tot Rock program. Is there a way that we could get our information into your monthly newsletter? And so all I did is he said, yeah, sure, why not? So I drafted up a 5-sentence blurb along with a picture and a sign-up link, sent it to him, put it in the newsletter. He sent it out, and we got a few hits from it. But also the other thing you have to recognize and realize too is that people aren't going to do the work for you. So yes, you may come up with these great partnership opportunities, things like that, but it's not like they're going to do it for you. You've got to provide them everything and make it as easy as possible for them to work with you. And then all of a sudden it becomes a pretty great little relationship you've got with these people. So again, the power of just meeting someone face to face.
That last point, Brian, is so important. It needs to be repeated. That, you highlighted earlier this idea of being very clear about what the evidence of success is to your networking efforts. And then I appreciated your question, Daniel, because I was like, well, he did just talk about co-marketing, but then you got more detailed. You're like, have a coffee, create the blurb, picture, link, and then follow through with them and do the work for them so that co-marketing is possible. I think that last piece, do the work for them, is so essential. It needs to be repeated 3 times, because
I agree.
This is where and this is sort of my final question for you, Brian, because I know we're light on time here. But this is the piece where I have resistance, dude, most likely. I look at my week, which is blocked out to the minute, as like CEO of Brooklyn Music Factory and then other businesses that I'm involved with, et cetera. And I'm just like, where am I going to do this networking thing Brian's talking about? And I feel like I have to link it to yes, this is a great idea, and only choose the opportunities where I know I will follow through with the connections and actually get to the point of success with them. I'm curious, my final question for you, Brian, is do you have a version when you look ahead to the next month of budgeting your time for this type of marketing effort? Or are you more are you improvising at this stage just to see what comes up and then you intuit what to follow through on and not?
Yes and no. Yes in the fact that, I've already signed up for several events for the year. One of the expos is actually coming up in 2 weeks.
Totally.
So I've already got that blocked off. I've got my Friday and Saturday at the end of March booked up and ready to go. And so knowing that, and those things you sign up months in advance. So it's easy to block that time off your calendar. But again, it's one of those things you've got to seek out those opportunities and figure out, okay, of these, call it 10 events that are going to happen in my community, what are the couple that I could be a part of that I think will provide me value? And what do I want to get out of them? But then really, Nate, to answer your question, going forward, it's just kind of an improvising thing at this point. I don't block out time on my calendar. And maybe this is an interesting thing because I feel like kind of doing the networking thing, talking to people is just part of my normal weekly cadence, that it's something that I don't block off time for because I just assume it's something I'm going to do. And it's not to say that I sit here and spend an hour doing community outreach and partnering outreach every week. I do it as it comes up. Or if I've got a campaign coming up that I see that I'm like, ooh, it'd be interesting to see if I could reach out to this business to see if it's something they would partner with me on. So I would say it's definitely much more improvised, but I also know that I've seen the value of it over the last year. So if that opportunity comes up, or if it's an opportunity that I think would be worth me seeking out, I make sure to prioritize it in my also crazy busy schedule. And so, and like you, Nate, I'm sure that there's plenty of things that I've got in my calendar every week that I could easily slide off, or also offload to someone else on staff here at Rock U to say, hey, could you take care of this for me this week because I've got a coffee that I got to do with the guy across town. Yeah, there's plenty of those kind of things that you can always shift around and prioritize. And I've always prioritized networking above most other things because I've seen the value in it.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great final comment on it too, which is know you're also where you're most valuable to your business. And that last piece, you're saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to be of most benefit to this entity if I go have this coffee versus whatever else you were going to do that morning.
Yep. Yeah, and it's kind of recognizing too that as the owners, we are the face of our business. And so networking is something you could delegate, but you don't want to because you're the face of it and you want to be the face of it and you want to be the one that's representing your school. And so therefore, that's why I said, I can always offload and delegate some of these tasks that have to get done to other people here at Rock U because they're capable of it. I've trained them to do these things. And I've seen my value as an owner is being the face of the business. And so that's why I will prioritize some sort of a networking thing over, payroll. No, not payroll, but a bad example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I dig it. Thank you so much for Brian. I totally appreciate you sharing all your wisdom on this, and it's inspiring to me. So that's always a great guest on the old 7FMS podcast when I leave with a pile of notes in my own Evernote. So that's a testament to you, Brian. Thank you.